Hi there, this is the second video in our four-part series introducing city government leaders to the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. I'm Greg, a volunteer with Fraser Valley Climate Action, and I'm hoping to help inform leaders about the big opportunity that cities have to fight climate change. In this video, we will build on what we covered in the first video. So if you haven't watched the first one, you'll find the link in the comments. Go back and watch that first video first. When cities apply the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, I see four broad themes. And so we've already covered the first theme, telling the truth about climate change. In this second video, we will cover stopping the expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure as the second theme. When we invest in infrastructure, we expect that it will be in service for many years. Let's consider 20 years just for discussion's sake. We pay a high price because we expect a payback. If it's a pipeline that we build this year, we can expect that pipeline to be carrying oil products for 20 more years, out to 2042. When we purchase a vehicle that burns petroleum, we can expect it'll still be burning petroleum 10 years later or more. When it's a gas station, we expect that the costs of that gas station will be paid off for the owner over the course of the next years that it's in operation. So when we add fossil fuel infrastructure, we're locking in future pollution, because we're going to have that oil or that gas or those other things that are being burned and released into the air that we breathe continuing for that period of time. Think of it as making the problem worse. There's where we are today, and then there's adding new fossil fuel infrastructure. And adding that new infrastructure makes it worse. At the very least, if we're serious at all about our health, our neighbors, social justice, or stopping climate change, we could at least stop making things worse. And that's what this video is about. One of the things that cities can do that's quite practical in this regard is we can say no new gas stations. The petroleum, or we say gas in North America, vehicles in our city already are able to purchase gas. We have lots of options. Many people are content to drive further and line up for 10 minutes extra at Costco just to pay a slightly lower fee. And we aren't missing gas stations. There's no big lack of them. So we don't need to add more tanks in the ground filled with toxic fuels. Did you know that when a gas station is decommissioned, that the site needs to be left vacant for years? And in order to monitor and to remediate that site, that can take years, and it can cost millions of dollars to remediate a site. Often the oil company simply continues paying property taxes so they don't have to clean up the site, and it sits empty, unused, an ugly empty spot within the city that basically can't be used for anything else. But we can minimize these problems and prevent expansion by refusing to allow the development of brand new gas stations in our city. Let's talk about gas appliances. Did you know that there's an increased risk for childhood asthma from indoor gas stoves, and that is similar to the risk that the child would face by having someone in the house who's a smoker? From this perspective, gas ranges are not safe. They adversely affect the health of children. Plus, they pollute. Every time they're used, they emit CO2 into the air that we're breathing, in that case within the house, which seems unsafe. Hot water tanks and furnaces that heat water by burning methane are emitting CO2. They release it into our air. It's marketed as natural gas, but there's precious little about it that's natural. So we're mostly talking about methane that's being burned. And methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. Now, we have better options. Heating with electricity is not only more efficient, meaning the energy ends up where we want it to be, but it can also be very competitive in terms of operating expenses. At our house, we've heated for the last 16 years with baseboard heaters, using electricity, clean electricity from BC. And that is the most expensive option. But we've done it because we don't want to pollute. We don't want to contribute to climate change. And so, people sometimes ask, well, what would we do if we didn't have gas? The answer is very simple. You would use clean electricity and we wouldn't have the pollution. But even better things are happening. Electric heat pumps are about 300% efficient. That's because they don't generate their own heat. They get the heat from outside and they move it inside to the house. Or in the summer, they do the opposite and they take the heat from in the house and they push it outside resulting in air conditioning. So heat pumps can be a cost-effective alternative, and really they should be the main way that we're heating our homes. So for new construction, there's lots of electric appliances available. These are cost-effective, they're healthier when we consider air quality, fire hazard, explosion risk. The city should be preventing appliance stores, heating contractors, and others from selling and installing fossil fuel appliances within the city. These restrictions could be put into effect via restricting business licensing, allowing the sale of everything except fossil fuel burning items, etc. Could be via denying permission for new permitting approvals to prevent new fossil fuel heated buildings from being constructed within the city. And we see a number of large cities have actually led the way on this. New York is planning to get to that point within the next few years. Vancouver's heading in that direction. This is something we can do. It's a good practice that's going to help to reduce the new infrastructure that's coming in. And I'm emphasizing that this is all about stopping new stuff in video 2. So another thing we can do is we could say no new gas engines. They're noisy, they're inefficient, they pollute, they wake us up on Sunday when we're having lunch with our friends. When we think about lawnmowers and hedge trimmers and leaf blowers and weed eaters and all the gas appliances that people are purchasing for hundreds of dollars and then using to burn fossil fuels on their private properties, that's a bit of a problem. There are electric alternatives, both battery and ported, and there is an abundance of these available in local stores in our cities right now. So we could just ban the sale of these devices within our cities. And as our neighbors get on board and do the same, it won't be like there's cross-border shopping or anything. We can lead the way, and then it should be harder and harder for people to put these polluting devices next to our bedroom windows, that kind of thing. We talked about no new gas appliances. We talked about no new gas engines. Let's talk about no new permits for gas utilities. As new buildings are being built, as old buildings are being renovated, sometimes there's permit applications to install gas service. And by gas service, we mean methane. Pipes in the ground carrying greenhouse gas that's flammable, that's explosive, that needs to be contained to the houses, right? And so as we permit additional pipes in the ground carrying this stuff, we lock in those future pollution scenarios. So what we want to do is we want to prevent that. We want to say no new permits for gas. If somebody needs to heat something up, they can use electricity. And there's plenty of it around. So not only does this simplify the underground infrastructure for the city, fewer pipes to keep track of, fewer pipes to avoid hitting when we're digging other infrastructure and installing things, whether it be drainage or water or electricity or cable. Basically, we're simplifying the infrastructure, we're making it safer. We don't want to be adding new gas utilities. That would be futile. That would be running in the wrong direction and causing future climate change to be even worse. New gas utilities should be banned entirely so that the only gas infrastructure work taking place underground in the city is the removal of old pipes that are no longer required because residents have switched to cleaner electricity. 16 years ago, we moved in and we've been doing fine with no gas. The utility came by and said, hey, we're here to hook it up. And we said, no, thanks. And they said, whoa, this could cost money. And we said, that's fine. And they never hooked it up. And a year later, they came by and they took the pipe connection away. So we don't actually have gas to our house anymore. So future people coming to our house can't burn gas without paying to have a new pipe installed, which is exactly what we want. We want to make it expensive for people to do the pollution at their house. So this is the future. This is the direction we need to see in the Fraser Valley with our fragile airshed and as citizens of the planet experiencing climate change. So we're going to have more and more protection for our residents as we get off of gas, protection from swinging gas prices and that volatility, more independence in terms of being able to choose where their electricity comes from. And if they install solar, they can go completely independent and create it themselves just using the sun. So there's lots of alternatives here. It's very reasonable to say that we won't have new gas put in. So building on this theme of electrical power, new buildings have great opportunities to use geothermal, rooftop solar, electric heat pumps. All of these technologies exist today. They're cost competitive, and we should be making sure that new buildings are being permitted to use these technologies rather than gas. Oil and gas companies like FortisBC are advertising in our cities, on their trucks, and billboards and such, encouraging people to switch from clean electricity to polluting methane, natural gas, to save money. And so this is ridiculous. We know that burning fossil fuels is causing climate change and costing all of us more money as we have to repair our roads and pay more for insurance and all those other costs. And so essentially it's a lie. The gas company has externalized that cost to the citizenry, and they're advertising, hey, switch off of clean electricity. This should be illegal. It should be illegal, just like we have restrictions on cigarette advertising to children. We should have restrictions that prevent fossil fuel companies from promoting their products. You'll understand that marketing creates the sense of need or desire in the purchaser, a desire or need that wasn't there before. That's why they're advertising. So we should ban advertising because it's all about new installations and new usage and increased consumption and increased pollution. These things fit together like a glove. So as a condition of business licensing, by banning advertising in the city, we could go to advertising companies like Pattison Outdoor and make sure that if they want to run their signs in our city, that they agree not to show fossil fuel advertising. The city should not allow sponsorship of events, whether those be arts or sporting events, by fossil fuel companies. And that should reduce the advertising and promotion of this ultimately harmful technology that is causing us so much grief that we have to get rid of. So we're going to stop the expansion by stopping advertising. We also need to stop making deals with and accepting gifts from the fossil fuel industry. Don't accept gifts from the oil and gas industry. I understand that Abbotsford received a gift from Trans Mountain Pipeline to cover the costs of rebuilding the Ledgeview Golf Course clubhouse. I guess it looked like free money, and they thought, well, we'd be silly not to take it. Well, that creates the impression that the city of Abbotsford is somehow cooperating with the oil and gas industry here, Trans Mountain in particular. We know Trans Mountain has run their expansion of the pipeline under Ledgeview Golf Course, and dug it up and crossed the roads and all that stuff. But is this sort of hush money? Is this money being given to the city so it won't object and won't ask questions, so that the city will feel some obligation to oil and gas? You see how there's strings attached, even if there's no strings attached? There's always strings attached, and sometimes they're puppet strings, and that's not good. If it creates the appearance of some sort of collusion, some sort of cooperation there, then respect for the city's independence goes down the drain. So certainly we don't appear to be independent in Abbotsford, even if we are, because we accepted that money from oil and gas, so stop it. We really need city government leaders to get creative and to take responsibility and be cooperating and advocating with other levels of government. So I encourage you to be council candidates, not council can't-didates. Sorry, I couldn't resist the dad joke, had to go in there. The number of times that I've asked someone in city government, city leadership about something and had them say, oh, that's the province, that's not us. That is absolutely the wrong attitude. It should be, I know it's the province and I've got their number or their contact information here. Let me help you reach out. Let me represent you as a part of our city to get the services that you need. So we need to stop passing the buck to other levels of government, even if things fall within their responsibilities, because guess what they're doing? They're receiving things that are the responsibility of the city, and rather than directing them to the leaders and the city staff who need them, they're passing the buck to, saying, oh, that's not us, that's someone else. And, the citizens haven't perhaps all taken political science, and they may not understand civics as well as the government leaders. It's our job to educate people and help them get there. So, if you need funding for bike lanes across the provincial highway, don't wring your hands and blame the province. Set up the meetings. Get it done. These people want to help. There are probably things being asked of the MLAs that are our responsibility as city leaders too. And so cooperate, collaborate. Together we can make the necessary changes to fight climate change. But don't pass the buck. That is such poor leadership. Don't allow the expansion of oil, gas pipelines, or storage facilities in your city. So the Trans Mountain expansion seems to be a done deal at this point, despite most of that benefit not accruing to the cities that have to host the pipeline and its installation. Cities that deny permission for building new infrastructure, including pump stations, new pipelines, new storage tanks, and the like, we will be eliminating future fossil fuel pollution associated with that infrastructure. And cities that do this also eliminate the risks associated with spills, leaks, fires, explosions, toxic gases being released, horrible smells, all the stuff that fits with oil and gas, but never makes it into their marketing campaigns. So let's reduce those risks and let's not extend that expansion the next time they come knocking and ask for permits to do something. This is an industry on its way out. Get the fossil fuel interests out of our politics. Don't let them sit on committees. Don't let them sit on boards. Don't let their lobbyists take up your time. The fossil fuel industry undermines democracy by infiltrating politics with lobbying messages and sponsoring political campaigns. They try to do this to influence decision making. They're not doing it because they're benevolent. They dilute the climate policy and embrace our destructive business practices in this area. We cannot allow this. We can't have fake organizations and paid lobbyists having better access to government leaders and decision makers than the citizens we serve. The average citizen is busy feeding their family, going to work, volunteering in their community, looking after their kids, being kind to their neighbors, maintaining their house. They don't have time to set up some meetings with government leaders to advocate for what everybody needs. But the lobbyists paid by the oil and gas industry have nothing but time. A phone call here, email there, a campaign here, some persuasion, some mailers there. That's all they do. And so we cannot allow their artificial, if you will, influence to do this. We need to stop subsidies and funding for fossil fuels in our cities. If there are programs we have in place that are giving tax breaks or incentives or rebates or other financial support to fossil fuel industry, just stop it. That's the only reason that we have people making the argument that these are less expensive than electricity, because the government is taking taxpayer dollars and handing them to oil and gas. Stop it. It's ridiculous. You're enabling. We are enabling if we do that. It's not you. Make sure there's no favorable treatment for oil and gas, that they're paying their fair share of taxes, that they're not getting a free ride in any capacity. They need to pay to clean up their mess, clean up after themselves. We need to phase out gasoline and diesel vehicles. Via business licensing conditions and restrictions, we could do this. Set a date for the complete phase out of fossil fuel transportation in our city. We could work with car dealers to set expectations that they'll be selling at least the average percentage of EVs, with a percentage that grows each year. For example, in 2021, in British Columbia, 15% of BC new vehicle sales were EVs. So we shouldn't allow people to sell less than 15% EVs. We should be moving this forward. And if our goal is to get to 100% EVs by 2030 or 2040 or whatever the number is, we need to have them boost that percentage year over year. So we need to set that expectation and set the expectation that the dealers need to have those EVs in stock available to purchase. Not 2 years later on a waiting list that people have to get in line and put their deposit down and hope the car shows up when they've got tons of gas cars sitting there. This is just dumb. We need to have those dealers doing the right thing. We need to phase out fossil fuel rail vehicles as well. Many of our communities have trains coming through them, perhaps rail yards where trains get built, all the cars get put together into a train and then go off. And we have these diesel locomotives driving up and down the tracks, polluting so much carbon pollution into the air, and particulate matter from the diesels. It's terrible. Everyone who smelled one knows. We need to stop that. So we need to approach those railroad companies and ask them to use electricity only within our city limits. To approach the larger companies that are transiting through our cities, and we need to ask them to start to consider how they're going to electrify. What can they do to reduce pollution while they're driving through our city? I don't know, maybe they coast while they're going through our city or something. It would all help, I'm sure. So we need to engage in these things and not act like they're all beyond our control and beyond our influence. We need to also consider how we're going to limit and phase out fossil fuel for airports. So we don't want to expand fuel storage, sales at airports. We want them to remain at existing levels or lower. So we want to work with airports and electric utilities to provide adequate infrastructure to charge electric planes. Harbour Air, a Vancouver-based company, is testing electric flight in this area, and it won't be long until we'll be able to fly from Vancouver to Victoria on electricity with no carbon pollution associated. So we want to make it easy for each of our cities to invite the next electric short-haul carrier to come to our city to reduce our pollution. We also need to work with car dealers, ICBC, and the provincial government to limit excessive polluting vehicles. Like these trophy trucks that you see with the lifted suspension and the extra exhausts and the smoke bellowing out because they have installed some aftermarket equipment to cause it to actually pollute more. This is ridiculous. Maybe you haven't heard of coal rolling, but if you Google it, you'll see what's actually happening in our cities by some silly residents who are really operating in an antisocial way. So we would never deny somebody who's working a work truck to get their work done. But these trophy trucks that are not used for work, that are just used to demonstrate aggressive behavior and to intimidate other road users, making it less safe for everyone else and polluting far more than their fair share with their illegal exhaust systems, oversized tires, and other aspects. We need to engage in this. So this has been video 2. I am a little disappointed it went as far as 21 minutes. I was trying to cut down. I guess there's a lot of opportunities for us to cut down. And so I hope what you've heard in this video is a lot of practical steps that cities can take that are within our jurisdiction, or at least our influence, that can reduce the expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure in our cities and reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. I hope this is helpful. Video 3 and 4 will be coming, and I wish you all the best. I encourage you to check out the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty website and understand a little bit about that. And a reminder that at the Union of BC Municipalities, a motion on this topic will be coming up, and we want you to be supportive of this and aware of what it is. Thank you. Take care.